Welcome in, everybody, to the Paul Farrington Show, a Tuesday, August 25th. The summer coming to an end here. Kind of crazy. Kind of unbelievable that we're so close to football season in just a couple weeks here. Oh, less than 2 weeks now. I'm going up to Lambeau Field for Notre Dame, Wisconsin, which is a game that's about 5 years in the making, 6 years in the making, but I can't wait. We got football right around the corner. It's always kind of sad to see the summer come to an end, but football season helps. Football season helps. I got all these fantasy drafts going on. We're going to have our fantasy episode coming up pretty soon here. Just a solo record today. Tomorrow, I guess technically later today, we'll be recording with Aaron Nagler from Cheesehead TV, talk a little Packers, some NFC North, maybe get some predictions in there. Really looking forward to that. I've never actually talked to Aaron before other than in some group chats. I've been thrown into some group chats with a bunch of the Packers media sphere. It doesn't help the allegations, but great way to make some contacts. So excited to have Aaron on. Next week, we'll have Chris Emma from The Score here in Chicago, talk some Bears and some more NFC North. So we're right there, right? A couple weeks away now from football season officially kicking off. For now, we have some preseason to react to. Caleb Williams, we get his first look of the 2026 year against the Bengals. JJ McCarthy struggles again. We'll talk a little bit about JJ. Ashton Jeanty, an injury scare that the Raiders seem to have survived. And the 49ers owner, Jed York, getting himself in some trouble. A little bit of trouble before the season in San Francisco. Just some thoughts on that. Relatedly in some sense, Deshaun Watson's named the starter for the Browns. So we'll get into all of that as the show gets underway here. Where I do want to start, we'll start with the Packers. Given that, right, I am going to Lambeau in a couple of weeks. We'll start with Green Bay. Jordan Love gets one drive in their game against the Broncos. So if you remember, that's kind of where it all ended last year for the Packers. They go into Denver. I think they're 9-3-1 at the time, maybe 9-2-1. I can't remember the exact record, and they're leading that game in the second half before Micah goes down. The Denver defense gets going, crowd gets going, and the season pretty much falls apart after that. Green Bay doesn't win another game the rest of the season, which is just 9-2-1 because they lost their final five, right? Just 9-3-1, I think. Just a crazy way for that season to end when it looks like the Packers are threatening for the 1 seed and then have it all come crashing down so quickly. Denver's the place that happened. So they go back there. And on his one drive, Jordan goes 5 for 7, 56 yards and a touchdown. Big fourth down conversion to Matthew Golden, who time and time again, right, continues to be the guy that Jordan Love looks for on fourth down in critical situations. He had a really nice drive. That fourth down catch came with Pat Surtain guarding him. I mean, he can't get better than that. But perhaps more impressive was actually a catch he had later in the drive. Drew a pass interference, still made the catch, but just a nasty release from Matthew Golden, who looks like someone kind of poised to make that jump. And if he does, Jane Reed didn't play in this game. If he does make that jump, it's going to be helpful for that Packer offense. I'm not sure, what the ceiling I would be for Matthew Golden just yet, but from all accounts, he's been playing a lot better this training camp. And I know he was good last training camp, but he's been pretty good in this game. This one drive, right? He looked pretty solid. I actually I saw a post about Love's stat line, and the touchdown drive, and it had all the highlights. And I got back, I think this was Saturday night. I get back hanging out with some of the guys. No, this must have been Friday. Yeah, Friday. I get back and maybe a little tipsy, maybe just slightly tipsy. And I was like, you know what? Thumbs down. I just sent out a tweet, thumbs down, with the stat line, and about 81,000 Packers fans got to look at that, I'm sure. And some pretty funny responses to that on Twitter. But I just started thinking, I went back and I watched the tape, and the offseason's dominated by QB rankings, right? The Sando quarterback tiers is something that every single NFL show is going to talk about. You just see everyone, Colin, right? My boss, Colin, puts out his rankings. That's one of the easiest ways to generate content and to generate talking points. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. And I feel like at this point, when we're talking Jordan Love, the highest you see him in most rankings is probably around 7. And that ranking might be from myself. It's the seventh best quarterback in football. And then the I'd say the general range you find him is 11 through 15, maybe 11 through 14. Not quite, not definitely not in that first tier, and maybe towards the second half of the second tier quarterbacks. The second tier quarterbacks right now is bigger than we've ever had in football. You could probably go QB 6 through like 15 or 16. You could say they're all sort of in the same tier and rank them, as you will. Uh, but to me, it shouldn't be controversial right now to say Jordan Love's a top 10 quarterback in football. I think he's the second best quarterback in the NFC after Matthew Stafford at this point in time. And Bears and Lions fans are probably going to hear that, right? We're our NFC North following and be a little bit annoyed, right? Caleb Williams, Jared Goff are two guys who are also usually ranked right in the same range as Jordan Love. I want to make one thing very clear. I think Caleb Williams has the highest ceiling of all those guys. I think he's a very good quarterback and going to continue to get better in year 2 with Ben Johnson. Jared Goff is exceptional, right? For what the Lions, in general, he's very good, especially for what the Lions ask him to do. I mean, he's put up, right, the most passing yards in the league the past 4 years. Does he also have the most touchdowns? Jared Goff has just been sensational in his time in Detroit. So I don't want anyone, getting upset. You're always talking about Jordan Love. I think all the NFC North quarterbacks, other than what the Vikings have, are guys playing at a very high level and who can get to an even higher level potentially this year. So Goff, we kind of know who he is. But if Bears and Lions fans want to get upset with Jordan Love being ranked high, guys, I just point to the games he played against you last year. 3-1, 979 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 1 interception. That was Jordan Love in his 4 games because he got knocked out of the second game he played against the Bears. Remember, that's what he put up against the other 2 NFC North teams that everyone's picking to go to the playoffs. Against the Vikings, he didn't have to do anything because we in Lambeau we did absolutely nothing. Right now, it feels like maybe Caleb might be a little overrated for where we are right now, right? Not talking about the end of the year. For right now, Love and Goff probably a little bit underrated. Again, at this point in the season. And LaFleur's always been a guy that wants to establish the run, right? The Packers ran the ball 5th most in the league this year. 2 years ago, it was 3rd most in the league. And something Packers fans are upset about is, all right, we're running the ball the 5th most in football. Our DVOA is 22nd in the league, right? They were not successful running the ball, even though they did it all the time. And on the other side of that equation, you had Jordan Love, who was 2nd behind Drake May in EPA per dropback for quarterbacks who threw the ball at least 200 times. He was 3rd in total EPA in the league. He was 5th in QBR. Basically, any statistic you looked at with Jordan Love, he was going to come in that top 10, sometimes even the top 5. I mean, he was just awesome. And the next, and you hear Matt LaFleur talking about, this year we're going to let him cook. That's a huge realization if he actually means it for Green Bay, right? Because what they need, the next step for the Packers is realizing you don't want Jordan Love just to manage this offense. You want him to be the offense. You want it to revolve around Jordan Love, right? He should be a guy that is initiating everything, not just making sure everything's okay. To me, it's like if you have a Ferrari and Green Bay clearly thinks it does in Jordan Love, get him off the side streets. Let's get him on an open road and see what this guy can do. Not saying, Matt LaFleur needs to drive this car recklessly, but get it out of the neighborhood, right? It's like Jordan Love, if he's your Ferrari, don't treat him like a Honda Civic. Get him out there. Let him play. Let him rip it. And if LaFleur actually does what he says he wants to do, you can look at the landscape of, sleeper MVP picks, and Caleb and Dak are kind of in the same boat right now. Love's a little bit behind them. I think Love would be the pick as a sleeper MVP guy. If he puts up these great numbers when he actually has the ball in his hands, if you're going to do that more. I mean, he's one of the best passers in football. He's really good, guys. And we've been on this train. I know that's part of the reason this show got bigger, right? Was Jordan Love's explosion in 2023. And there's, these guys always talk positively about the Packers. Not all the time. Not all the time. Not when they were falling apart at the end of last season. But one thing that's, usually consistent is that Jordan Love's normally very, very good. he has one or two throws a game where it's, oh shit, what are you doing, Jordan? And if they get away with it, usually they're okay. But every now and then, right, he has that back foot throw that you don't like to see. And if it gets picked off, I remember it happened in the Lions game, right? I think he got called back in week 1. It was a penalty or something, but he got picked off. He was returned for a touchdown like that. Those are the kind of plays Jordan Love needs to eliminate. But here we are now. He's in his what? Is this year 4 as a starter? And you're hoping he can take that jump. So I think he's a great sleeper MVP candidate. I expect it to be a really big year for Jordan Love, especially if they put the ball in his hands more. Guys are going to need to stay healthy, right? You get Tucker Kraft back. That's huge. You hope Christian Watson stays healthy all year. Jane Reed's already had some injury stuff, but he's on the field. He was out for a lot of last year. If Golden gets more opportunities, like the receiving core is there. That's not a problem in Green Bay. It would be great for them if one of them took, really made a jump. But if you just roll into the season with those 3 guys and Tucker Kraft, you have all the weapons you need. You have all the weapons you need to have a really successful season. And frankly, Jordan's going to need to be really good for them to get past this 7 seed ceiling that they've had. But like enough talk. If I were a Packer fan, I'd be sitting back going like, all right, enough talk about letting him do this. Like let's actually see it. And it's always a little nerve-wracking in the playoffs or in the preseason when your starting quarterback is on the field. It's just Zach Allen on the touchdown throw. Zach Allen just blew past. I think it was Jager Burton. And, I'm watching that play. I'm watching it from the offensive line angle. I mean, he goes after Love's lower body. It wound up being a touchdown pass, but those are the kind of plays where Love got out of the way and, or at least, took the hit well. But you just watch that going, man, you see all these, you see how quickly a season can turn for a team in the preseason. Something. Ashton Jeanty they had a prayer circle. Luckily, he was okay. If he goes down, like that guy was a big part of the Raiders' plans for this year. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I don't know. Like that was something where if I were a Packer fan, I'd just be like, oh God, you see how many times JJ McCarthy got hit on the field. It's nerve wracking when your quarterback's out there. But Denver played a lot of their starters. From what I saw, I don't know the Denver lineup inside and out, but the stars were on the field. Sertan was on the field. Zach Allen was on the field. Cooper was on the field. Like they were playing. Bonito was on the field. Their guys were playing. And they went right down the field and scored. So it was a good look for the Packer offense, who was playing again without a handful of their starters as well. But this is the year where the NFC North is going to be so competitive. Jordan Love needs to play like a star, and I think he's good enough to. And I think that the cards are in hand for him to finally get the opportunity. It's a scorching sports summer, and you can make all of your picks on Prize Picks. Women's basketball and baseball are heating up, and every football preseason game kicks off this month on Prize Picks. And with big tennis slams and major golf tournaments on the horizon, there's no better place for all your summer sports picks than Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. And I just talked about him on the show, Jordan Love. I think he's a great pick to go more than 3,524.5 yards. Again, I'm not happy that my picks have been Jordan Love, Jared Goff, Caleb Williams throwing for more passing yards. But Matt LaFleur, if he says we're going to let Jordan rip it, I think they're going to let Jordan rip it. Past 2 years, he's thrown for 3,400 yards with a little bit more of a conservative approach. If everything that's coming out of Green Bay is true, it should be a pretty big season for Jordan Love, a potential MVP caliber season for Jordan Love. That's my pick. More than 3,524.5 yards. Prize Picks makes it super easy, guys. All I need to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats. Then I submit my lineup and I can follow along with the progress right in the app. It makes watching the games even more exciting when I know that every pass could win me money. The football preseason is here, and there's no better place to run your game than Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. We've got star players on new teams and a rookie class ready to take over, all while teams look to get started on the biggest football season yet. Make a lineup with player stats, pick game winners, spreads, or totals, and combine your picks in the same lineup. All on Prize Picks, now available in all 50 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. All right, a reminder to like, comment, and subscribe to the show as we're closing in on almost 30,000 subscribers. Right? It's been a while, but we're almost at 30,000. Got a really fun content schedule coming up over the course of the season here. A lot of recordings underway. Been having a lot of meetings. I can't wait to talk a ton of NFC North, and we're gonna we'll dabble with all the teams. So if you know anyone who loves football content, if you know anyone that you think we should target for the show, please let us know in the comments section, and please let me know any feedback. I'm always open to criticism, no matter no matter how mean it gets. Although it's better to see nice, friendly criticism. So let's go to the Vikings. JJ McCarthy. First off, God, I didn't watch the game live, but I saw we scored 3 points at the end of the game. It's just like, oh God, here we go again. The Vikings better hope their offensive line stays healthy, because man, Baltimore pretty much had their way with them. They could not get the ground game going. Guys were in JJ's face all day. He's on his back all the time. Sometimes that's JJ's fault, right, for holding the football a little bit too long. But whenever I'm watching JJ play, it feels like I'm watching a pitcher who's just trying to pipe it 98 through a wall every single time he throws the ball. There's just very little touch. It doesn't feel very natural. And listen, every once in a while, there's a nice play thrown in there. Right? It's not like he's just bad the entire game. The guy has a gun, and he kind of reminds me a bit of, for those of you guys who play golf, and I'm not a great golfer, but I really enjoy playing. It's awesome to get out on the course, and when I'm in a groove, I'm actually okay. Like I can play some bogey golf, but when you just have that perfect swing, right? It feels great. And whenever it happens for me on the course, I kind of like look around for a second. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, like I can do this. I know I can do this. And with JJ, every now and then there's a play that he makes, and you just go like, shit, like if he can string that together, maybe this thing could work out. But the same way for me, if I pipe my driver 250 down the fairway, I take out my 5-iron. It can get a little dicey with the 5-iron, and I chunk it 3 times. Yeah, I'm still going to walk away with a triple or quadruple bogey. And I mean, sometimes it can really get away from you. And I put down a double digit before on a hole. I've absolutely put down double digit scores. And that's just who JJ is right now, right? You see the arm, you see a few wow plays, and you think you could see the world where someone could get, I don't want to say tricked, but, turned on to him in the draft just a couple of years ago. But there are serious, I thought there were serious red flags. But then you see the misses, and when he misses beyond, the airmail throws on tape, usually there's another guy who's wide open on the other side of the field. He's just not reading the play correctly. He's throwing he's just throwing the ball way too fast. Again, no touch. It just looks unnatural. He doesn't really look like a comfortable thrower of the football. And for Kevin O'Connell, right, you think about his offense, processing, strict timing involved, rhythm. Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, those guys who, Sam Darnold and Kirk Cousins are two. I mean, they are great throwers. They're great throwers of the football. You heard all the stories of Sam Darnold in practices. Like, that guy can spin it. Kirk Cousins too. When he got going, Kirk had a few years there where he was, in that discussion of top 10 quarterback in the league. And I get that he's a memeable guy. But when he was with O'Connell in that 13-4 season, the Vikings offense was great. The defense was the problem. They were allowing like 400 yards a game. But Kirk Cousins, he is a guy that, Kevin O'Connell could kind of do what he wanted with. And Sam Darnold too. Sam put up 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns, basically. JJ kind of feels more like the guy that's really impressive at the carnival. You go over to the radar and he's like, wow, damn it, that guy can throw. But he's not ready to operate an NFL offense. That's sort of where we are. He's not a quarterback who's ready to work in a Kevin O'Connell offense. And frankly, I don't even think he's going to be the backup at this point. I think it's more likely that we get, in fact, I might even say certainty. Carson Wentz will be the backup in Minnesota. who right now, because you think about it, Kyler has quite an extensive injury history. I don't want to say likely, but it's very, very possible this year in Minnesota, you're going to need someone to step in for a few games with Kyler. Maybe he rolls his ankle or something. Who do you feel more comfortable keeping the ship afloat, Carson Wentz or JJ McCarthy? The answer has to be Carson Wentz. I mean, it's the same problems for JJ over and over and over again. The throw to Miles Price, the touchdown that he missed. Again, I feel bad that you see that one play, and the same thing with the Giants in the first preseason game. He had another out route. It was just like he just throws it over the guy's head, and you're like, this is always the same problems. Throws it a million miles per hour, and it's over his head. It's like, dude, just lob it up there, right? That's a throw Jordan Love makes in his sleep every single time. And I kind of feel bad that you just have one play that's highlighted, but it's like, these problems have been persistent. And I clocked one time, he's just getting crushed over and over again. It's no wonder he's hurt all the time. One time he's held the ball for almost 3.5 seconds. He just got clocked at the end of the play. It's like, God, JJ, like, you're never gonna make it. You're never gonna make it in the league if you're on in the injury tent, in the blue tent all the time. So I just, I feel bad because I like JJ McCarthy. Seems like a really nice guy, but he's just clearly in over his head right now. And he's not someone that you can trust with the offense. Uh, it's a shame, right? When we could keep going back to the Darnold side of it and like the mistake they made, but we'll have to see as Darnold continues, his ascent, I guess you could say, with the Seahawks. We'll see what Rodgers does this year, but McCarthy's it's never going to work in Minnesota here. Like there's going to be a fresh start, and he'll get another chance, right? He's 10th pick in the draft. There are traits of a quarterback that you like, but I just have a hard time seeing when people say he'll get a shot elsewhere. I just have a hard time seeing it work out anytime soon if Kevin O'Connell can't get something out of you. And I think O'Connell at times can be a little bit overrated compared to the guys he's usually mentioned in the same sentences with. But I just don't really see JJ, until there's major progression here. It's not a problem of the coach. Right? I mean, O'Connell's drawing up plays. You go watch the tape, like there are guys wide open. JJ just misses them or he doesn't see them. So it'll be Kyler, then it'll be Carson Wentz. Depending on how things go with Rodgers and Darnold, because Rodgers was someone I thought we should have brought in, and we'll see. See what Kyler turns into this year. We may walk away from this saying that this 2 to 3 year stretch of quarterback decision making was the worst in the history of football. Is that a stretch? I mean, it might be up there, depending on what Darnold turns into, and we'll see with Kyler as well. If Kyler has a good year, I guess you can make some excuses, but we're in pretty horrible territory right now as a fan base. So Caleb Williams made his season debut. He was 2 for 5 for 28 yards, which doesn't sound good, but he actually looked pretty good. He only got one drive. They went down the field. There was a penalty that put them pretty far behind the sticks, and they wound up getting a field goal. But the big story coming out of this game actually came down to one play, right? That's what everyone's talking about right now. Bears had a 1st and 20 on the Bengals 27-yard line after a holding on Braxton Jones. Caleb has a receiver pretty open on a slant, right? Pretty wide open on a slant. He instead decides to go downfield down the seam to Loveland, who the ball's, he puts it a little behind them. He has to contort his body a bit. It's a spinning catch, and Loveland, he can't come down with it. If he had put the ball on the money, it honestly probably would have been a touchdown. But really what got people talking is after the game, they asked Ben Johnson about it, and he said, essentially, I would have made a different read on that throw. And that sort of caught my attention because I don't think it was a bad decision by Caleb. That's an important part of this here. He didn't throw the ball into triple coverage. It wasn't like Loveland was, it was glued by his defender. If it's a slightly better ball, again, it's probably a touchdown. But the counter is, hey, 1st and 20, let's make our lives a little bit easier here. Take the 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 yards, right? Get into second and 10, second and 12. And now we're in a more operable situation for the offense. And Orlovsky told a great story, a clip pulled up on X for me today, where he said he was in Detroit about 6 years into Stafford's career, the two of them. And I'll always think of the Jared Allen Orlovsky play. I mean, I feel bad for that. That's what Orlovsky's career is remembered for. But I remember watching that live and it's just so good. But Orlovsky's talking about being in Detroit with Stafford, and they're watching film, and he said, why didn't you take the easy shot right here instead of making the throw you did? And Stafford looked at him and said, because I can make that throw and you can't, which was just kind of an insane thing to say to your teammate. I mean, the balls you need to have to just kind of say that to another guy's face. I don't know. I don't think I would have said it like that. I don't know the context of it, but it's hysterical. And it's also true, right? When you're talking about guys like Matthew Stafford and Caleb Williams, they can do things with a football that 99.9% of people who have ever lived cannot do. That's how talented these guys are. And part of what makes them great is that they're not only able to do this, but they're willing to make that throw. They think they can do it. And that's what makes Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams really a pretty fascinating marriage. You had Ben Johnson, marriage, the duo. You had Ben Johnson pretty much come out and say, I don't operate in efficiency. I operate with explosives. Like, that's what we're looking for, explosive plays. Caleb's built for that. He has a cannon. He's elusive. He's one of the best quarterbacks outside the pocket in football. Caleb hunts big plays. And the Bears, under Ben Johnson right now, they're really not being built for the 6-yard pass. They're being built to go for the kill. That's what they're being taught. Go for the kill when you can. And when I hear Ben Johnson say, I would have taken a different approach on a play where it doesn't look like Caleb's making a terrible decision, it makes your ears perk up a little bit. There are some quarterbacks out there who are going to be like the singles hitters in baseball, right? They'll take their 6 yards every single time. They'll step by step, death by 1,000 cuts down the field and score. Tom Brady made a career out of that, right? The greatest player of all time. He took what the defense gave him. Caleb can be a little bit like, fuck it, I'm going for it all. I'm swinging for the fences. He's a home run hitter through and through. And I'm excited, this year with the Bears, one of the biggest things that I'm watching for, especially with Caleb, right? It's not, can he make the spectacular play? We all know he can do that. We've seen it a million times, and he can do things that, really only Mahomes or maybe Josh Allen can do. Some of them, maybe only Caleb can actually pull off. So it's not a question of whether or not he can do it. It's about when he decides to do it. When does he put the cape on? Superman doesn't, sometimes it's okay for Superman to let the cops take care of it. You don't always need to go for the crazy big play. So how is that going to work with him and Ben Johnson? How is Johnson, it sounds like, put the reins on at the right times? That's one of the big questions I have, and something I'm really excited to see with the Bears. And I'm sure over the year, right, I've talked at length about the way the Bears got better as last season went on, not just Caleb, like down the entire roster. I mean, that team really takes to the coaching there, and they really respect their coaches. So as this season continues, I'm sure Caleb, will he get to that point where he's kind of just mastered what Ben Johnson wants him to do? And that's when it gets scary. Because if right now, if you get Caleb a little out of sync sometimes, and you saw it reduce a lot last year. I think in the Viking game in week 1, Caleb kind of got in his head a little bit. And then you start seeing later as the season progressed, all those comeback wins, right? That's a quarterback who's ready to operate under pressure. So how does Caleb navigate that? I'm really excited for it. Again, if you're enjoying the content, please throw us a subscription. It means a lot as we're trying to get closer to 30,000. The season's right here. And with that comes fantasy football season. And the big story in the fantasy world, really in the league, but it caught a lot of fantasy attention, was the Ashton Jeanty injury. And the reports coming out Sunday, it sounded horrible. He's helped off the field. I think they canceled practice. Players are huddled up, praying in circles. Like those are the kind of injuries where, I remember when Teddy Bridgewater basically, lost his leg almost. For anyone who doesn't know about that, he didn't lose his leg, but just had a horrific knee injury and actually almost lost his leg. You hear about, players throwing up on the field and the prayer circles and stuff. So when they said Ashton Jeanty had all this happening, it's like, shit, like that sounds really, really bad. He's probably a season ender. And then it comes out, a few hours later, oh, it's just a sprained ankle. Like, should be back soon. So a little bit weird on the reporting and the reaction. Sprained ankles can be really painful. So maybe he just came down in a really nasty way and it just hurt a lot. But the reaction made you think like, oh, this is bad. And you started to see some of the fantasy reactions of where Jeanty and the Raiders backup, I believe Mike Washington, were being drafted. And you're like Sleeper and I think Underdog put out like during that time frame for people who had their draft, Jeanty, the furthest Jeanty fell was the 11th round, and the highest Mike Washington climbed was the 3rd round, which is just, I mean, you're sick to your like you're happy that Jeanty's okay. I don't know. I mean, most people don't have as much empathy as I do, I'd say, when it comes to this stuff. So I'd imagine the people who took Mike Washington, in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round are like, are you kidding me right now? I mean, that's a tough hole to climb out of, unless if you handcuff Jeanty at the end of the draft just to be safe. But I mean, man, that is a brutal, brutal fantasy pick. And if you had taken Jeanty, I saw that video going around of the guys draft, and the one guy took Jeanty 1 overall, and they're all they're all sitting around the table just losing their minds, which reminded me what me and my friends would do if someone took Jeanty at the number 1 overall. I was kind of thinking about it too. If you love Ashton Jeanty this year, you would have to, like, I mean, truly, truly love him. You'd have to take him at the 1-1 because he's not going to get back to you. In all likelihood, he's not. No, there's no way he's going to get back to you. So, props to that guy. I think it's a stupid pick. Like if you're in a regular, half PPR league, it's Bijan has to be Bijan or Gibbs. Those guys had almost 80 catches. Bijan 2,200 yards last year. So it's a horrible pick, but I respect going with your guy. But for anyone out there, who's a fantasy commissioner, or you're having talks about when to do your draft, always put it as close to the season as you possibly can. If all the guys can draft, the day before the season kicks off, that is the time to do it, because you just never know when these injuries are going to happen. And for us, I'm the commissioner of my league with my friends. It's always, a topic of when we're going to do it. And we used to do the draft in mid-August because everyone was really excited. Like we love the fantasy draft. But then like you have 2 weeks where you're just kind of holding your breath, and you do not want to see your guy pop up on an alert. Like, on Sunday when you're watching, you want to see Christian McCaffrey 50-yard touchdown run. In late August, the last name in the world you want to see is Christian McCaffrey if he's on your fantasy football team. So for anyone out there who's trying to, figure it out, or they're doing it for the first time, please, for your own sanity, put it at the end of the year. That's when it has to be. Especially, I mean, if you're in a big buy-in league and you had Jeanty, oh my God, that must have just been a horrible feeling, but just gut-wrenching. Speaking of gut-wrenching, the 49ers owner, Jed York, he was arrested Monday morning, initially under the charges of engaging in prostitution. That was then changed to suspicion of disorderly conduct and possession of criminal tools. And the court documents say that he responded to an ad on a prostitution site and arranged for, quote, sexual activity with a female in exchange for $140. He was arrested in a trailer park this morning, or Monday morning. It's just humiliating for San Francisco. Do you know how much Jed York's family is worth? The DeBartolos, who, we have DeBartolo Hall over at Notre Dame. $8.5 billion. Billion with a B. I'm not a down with the rich and powerful kind of a guy. I'm looking to exploit any story you can. And York's an owner, so this will probably blow over immediately. It's not going to, it's just, that's just the way the world is right now for us. But it got me thinking a little bit more. about organizations and the extensive work they do for coaches and players, right? Not just their track record or their ability, but also like who they are as people goes in like a lot. There's a lot of research, right, and a lot of time spent trying to figure out who these guys are. And you think back to draft day, right? Like Bo Callahan, none of his teammates went to his birthday party. That's the red flag that stops you from taking the quarterback number one overall, which is just a pretty insane plot point for a movie, but pretty fun. Oh my God, no one went to his birthday party. Um, so you look at two real world examples with Vrabel and Deshaun Watson, and Watson was just named the starting quarterback for the Browns, which I just think is another big mistake. Like the guy clearly can't play. Like he's horrible. And even if you think Shador is bad, just throw him out there. Right. Like give him some reps. Give the unknown an opportunity. You probably know, but do you have to keep going on this story with Deshaun? I know he has the contract, right? The worst contract in the history of sports. But I mean, between Watson and Vrabel, it's two pretty slimy situations and just two very different reactions. And I remember when the Vrabel stuff was happening, I was saying to a handful of people, I was pretty disgusted by it. Um, and I was saying how if Vrabel was my coach, I'd lose all respect for him. Like, obviously, he's still the boss in the room, and you're still a professional. You need to do your job, but it would absolutely impact the way that I viewed him. I mean, I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. And the response I was getting from a lot of people was just like, that's sort of how it is in football. Like people do these things. I doubt it actually impacts anything in the locker room. Get out of your Notre Dame bubble, Paul. Like that. Those are things people were saying to me, and I'm sorry. It's just like for a sport where people are as tethered as football, like basketball, baseball, there's a little bit more like you can do it on your own. Like football is like the ultimate team sport. It's the ultimate, like, I have your back sport. And when the leaders and the faces of your organization, in this case, the coach for New England and the quarterback for the Browns are like unanimously agreed upon that they are kind of slimy. I can't help but think for at least some people in that locker room, it impacts the way that you view those guys. You view the guys who are going to be leaders in some sense. Whether I know that you have to earn leadership, but the quarterback will always be someone that guys are looking to, and that the coach will always be someone, right, that you look to, that is a leader of the team. Um, he could be a bad leader, but that comes with the position. And I think that it should. I mean, I think you should look at those guys differently. If the things that Vrabel and Watson, have been accused of, if all that happens, like, I think a normal reaction for people is to be like, yeah, what a loser. So the big difference, of course, with Vrabel and Watson is Vrabel's one of the best coaches in the league, and Deshaun Watson sucks. Like when you combine, kind of shady, slimy guy with also sucking at your job. I mean, that's why they're booing you, Deshaun. Like, they don't like you at all, and you don't win. If Watson was winning MVPs and the Browns were going to the playoffs, I'm sure they'd be chanting his name. Like I reflect back a little bit, and even with Brett Favre, right, with the whole pictures that he was sending with the Jets. Like, I mean, I was 10 years old at the time, but Favre, I was like, I had like a poster of him pretty much. I talk about Brett Favre in that 2009 season, like a family. And then you see all the stuff that happens. It's like, oh my gosh, like how can I actually do that? Again, I was 10 years old, but that's one of the kind of unfortunate realities of sports. If you're winning, people forgive things. And if you're losing, they don't. Deshaun Watson, like, I mean, he's going to have a horrible season, and it's going to, this story of his contract in Cleveland and the fans booing him, like, that's going to continue. He's not going to turn it around. And with Vrabel, I think the Patriots are a pretty good team. But, usually when stuff like this, when these big scandals break, like the shit truly hits the fan, it usually doesn't work out. I mean, Tiger Woods never really recovered. I know he had the moment, right? He had the bounce back with the Masters, but that kind of blew up his career. And, he had all the injuries too, I know, but that was one of the big moment with Tiger Woods. And, I think, Ray Rice, right? Which obviously, the video was horrific, but Ray Rice was a 4-time Pro Bowler. Like Ray Rice, or 3-time Pro Bowler. He ran for 1,000 yards 4 straight years, guys. Ray Rice was in his prime when that happened. Ended his career. Watson again is going to go down in flames, but Vrabel, you kind of expect it to be blown over, and what everyone's saying is like, this isn't a big deal anymore. Everyone's moved on. You're hearing that from people in the media, like, oh, the team's not going to think about this, but things do change very quickly. Like, we are human beings. We're a little bit irrational when it comes to changing our mind about people, about topics. If the Patriots get off to a bad start and losing starts to become a problem there. All right. Last year, you go to the Super Bowl, Drake May second in the MVP. If the Patriots get off to a bad start and more starts breaking about this, the whole Diana Rossini thing, which I don't know, there might be more. Like, I did not expect it to continue the way it did. I don't think anyone did. It's, again, I don't think this is actually how people and like how we as fans should react to this. Like, when people do these sorts of things, I do think it should impact the way you view them. Like, I'm sorry, that's just where my morals stand. I'm just curious to see how it could turn again, because you forgive a lot, and I've done it before. I'm not proud of it, but you forgive a lot when your team's winning, and if you're losing, things they just change very, very quickly. So, we started with Jed York on that, which is also disgusting, but just an interesting kind of situation here. And, Watson being named the starter is just a little surprising. I didn't think that was the right decision. Okay. So we're going to have, let me just see if there's any, I don't think I put out a mailbag. I just want to check if there's any questions here. Yeah, I didn't put one out. So, all right. Just a reminder, we'll have Aaron Nagler from Cheesehead TV coming on. That will probably drop Thursday. But there's a chance I can move it to Wednesday. So keep your alerts on, right? The best way to be alerted is to subscribe to the channel. Go over on Spotify and, give us a follow there as well on Apple Podcasts, right? We drop in podcast form if that's easier for you to listen on your way to work. I'll have Jack and Aaron will be on that show. And then maybe we'll have we're going to do the fantasy draft pretty soon with Jack and Zach. We need to get that one out soon. Even though, again, don't do your drafts till the closest season. So keep your alerts on. We'll tweet out everything about, and we'll put out more mailbag questions for everyone. Hope you guys have a great Tuesday, and I'll talk to you soon.